Welcome back, bitches. You're listening to The 100 Podcast, a show about CW's sci-fi series, The 100. I'm Dan, your mountain man, and today I am joined by my favorite grounder, Olga.
Hey, everybody. Well, we're continuing our discussion from the previous episode of Was the 100 Worth Watching? 1 year later edition.
Before we get into the feedback, I just want to say, if you guys haven't been following what we've been up to, we've been doing a Percy Jackson / Riordan verse podcast, ranking Rick Riordan. Check that out. Also, just stay tuned to the YouTube channel as we're continuing to do other things on there. But you know, we haven't been as consistent as I wanted to be on most things, but we are working on a lot of projects behind the scenes. And I have a novel I'm writing, so that's taking up a lot of time. But stay tuned to our Twitters. If you're a 100 Podcast fan, stay on the @100pod Twitter.
In my opinion, Dan is better than Jason. So
thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
How nice.
That's my endorsement. it won't suck. All right, let's start off with the would not recommend feedback.
Yep.
So at Zane Jan says, I do regret watching and wouldn't recommend it to anyone. I feel like I wasted my time watching a show where they tear apart everything they built in past seasons and destroy the characters, their development, and the very essence of the show. Broken heart emoji.
See, this is the thing is I can't disagree with them on any of those statements. It's all just a personal, emotional thing.
Yeah. We're invested emotionally.
Yeah.
Most people who watch a show for 7 seasons get invested.
Yeah.
At DiBiase Lowy says, if I didn't watch season 7, I'd say it was absolutely worth it. I've never been that hooked and invested in a show and the characters, but that's what makes the end so much worse. I wouldn't recommend that disappointment. It sadly takes away from the other 6 seasons. Now I'm annoyed all over again, LOL. That final season had so much potential, and they bombed it.
Yep.
I mean, this is the thing where season 5 at least has like a theoretical ending.
Yeah.
But season 6 is still like good.
Season
but
6
if you
is
watch,
one of my favorites.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you watch season 6, you can't not watch season 7 because there's no ending in season 6.
There's no point at all, I feel like, of feeling satisfied.
Right.
Yeah.
It needs a conclusion.
Yeah.
So then you're stuck with season 7.
Maybe you just jump to the final episode.
Oh my God. Whoa. That's bananas all of a sudden. But you're skipping over actually good parts of it.
You don't have to watch Bellamy die. You skip that episode. No.
There's other shit. There's other shitty episodes too, though. Maybe you should just watch like a compilation on YouTube. I'm sure there's one of the not terrible parts of season 7.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. And they completely cut out the hive mind, and in the end they're just on Earth as a friend group. And it's just like, wait, what?
Oh, Lex is back.
Okay.
How nice.
Where's Bellamy? Oh, I think I saw him on a mountain. That's fine. Over the years, so Shay Garche says, over the years, I recommended the show to my friends. Now I really regret having recommended it to them, and I'm glad that some didn't hear me and never started the journey. It is worth it. Oh, excuse me, very different. It is not worth it, and I regret having spent so much time on it. The end ruined the whole story for me.
I have a question for you. So we would say pretty conclusively now this is not a good show.
Right.
Would you still say that Clarke is an amazing character?
Do I have to include season 7?
Yeah.
All right. I would say when Clarke is being herself, she's a great character. But then she starts acting pretty out of character and not in line with the direction that the growth they wanted to put her in. It seems like she regresses. Yeah. So, she's got good parts and bad parts, but the ending is a really weird bad part.
Yeah, I mean, I would still say Clarke is a great character. I think that the arc they put her in season 7, if you even want to call it an arc, I don't even know if I would call it an arc, but I don't know. It was not good, but I still think, I don't think they ruined her character. Well, maybe by killing Bellamy.
No, I think they ruin her character by making the moral determination that like aside from the people that she has like formed a one-to-one connection with, she is the enemy of humanity.
Well, yeah.
She doomed humanity.
Yeah, but that's, to me, that's like what the hive mind is putting on her.
How is that not what...
Like I don't blame Clarke for that, because I don't blame Clarke for the decision to kill Cadigan. So... do I think it was the right choice? No. But do I blame her? No. I honestly have much more of an issue with her shooting Bellamy, because I just don't think she would do that.
So this is the thing where, like, once she's going on these rampages and being like, I gotta keep protecting people. Like, it would be interesting if you had the thing of she doesn't know when to stop protecting people. And I think that's what they were trying to say. But at what point was Bellamy not one of the people that she wanted to protect? Like, that makes...
Yeah.
That makes no sense to me.
In season 5. And then she just became season 5 again.
But that's what I'm saying is the regression, where then she grows past that in theory.
Well, and that's the great thing about if you end at the end of season 5, is she actually has a very good, even if it's annoying as tits, like season 5 Clarke is
very frustrating.
But at least by the end of it, she has had an arc, and she's not perfect, and she made a lot of mistakes, but she's looking out to a brighter future, and we can do better.
And you can pretend that she does.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where it can end.
Yeah.
Because it's not like her arc in season 6 is like incredible either.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing, I like some of the stuff from season 6.
I'm not saying it was bad. I said it's not great.
But the thing is, I feel like the main problem with Clarke season 7 is that Jason was like responding to Clarke season 3 still. And is like, because of what happened in season 3, she will always be bad. And I'm like, I feel like we really moved past this a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying she's perfect, but like...
there's nothing interesting about a perfect character. We're not asking, as viewers, we're not asking her to be perfect.
Yeah. I just... Yeah, the main issue was the regression.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing where I'm like, go on this journey with this imperfect, frustrating, but smart and great character, and face those moral dilemmas with her, and they're going to be really interesting. And then, you know what? Just take the journey up to a point. I really I mean, that's the thing is, the other thing with Clarke is that, well, you don't even get Nevermind though if you don't watch season 6. But at the same time, like, I think that it's not, like, as much as I don't like her regression, I don't think it's Clarke that I'm taking as much of an issue with as much as it is that the show very forcefully is condemning her. And so they don't let you feel how you want to feel about Clarke. Right, because you're supposed to be...
because you're stupid if you don't hate Clarke. Like,
right, look what she did. Look at the thing. This makes... Never mind. She spends the episode finally, like, trying to forgive herself and grow past it and move on. And she chooses life, and she chooses to return to it and try to do better. And then in season 7, she says, forget that. Fuck that. I'm going to go back into mama bear mode and I'm the last defense. Oops. Turns out I'm the monster, and I'm going to get our civilization genocided. Like,
it would have made so much more sense. Like, even if you wanted to stay within the confines of like what the finale was with the hive mind and everything, it would have made a lot more sense for them to stay in that weird bubble, bridge place, and to make so much... First of all, it should have been 2-parter. But second of all, so much more of it should have been the discussion between Lexa and Clarke, and actually looking back more directly on the various choices that Clarke made, and letting Clarke convince the person that the world is gray, and I did my best. Like, even though, yes, he technically convinced them by letting her stay alive, I guess, but like, it was really not her.
It was not her.
That Clarke had no agency in the finale.
She had none. And this is the very frustrating part of it, of so much of the show has been things in her control and out of her control, but they have been about her and her being involved in them. And the way that she is involved in the finale is just incredibly disappointing.
Yeah. Anyway,
we
have a lot of reading to do.
I know. Well, but you asked a good question, and it's not an easy answer, and it's a frustrating answer.
Yeah.
All right. So Grady Bridges says it's not worth watching. The final season was a dumpster fire that was worse than Game of Thrones or Lost. Two shows I also can't watch again. See, I disagree with Lost. I would watch that again.
I cannot watch Game of Thrones again.
I can't watch Game of Thrones again, though. But that's what I'm saying. That one is like more about the story. I mean, there is philosophy in it, but they kind of always had trouble with that.
Yeah.
So
Game of Thrones.
I know. Big asterisk.
I think I'll go back and watch it eventually. I also didn't hate it as much as you did. And most people
you were
did.
less involved in the fandom of it.
Yeah.
There was no emotional attachment to the convoluted storyline they tried. They made Clarke and Bellamy unrecognizable. They should have made the story simple. Back to the beginning, like Buffy season 7. They set up the wormhole. Just go back in time, stop the bombs. Instead, we get some advanced species to decide humanity's fate.
He thought he was being so clever and going against what we'd expect. And guess what? Sometimes you expect things because they're smart. And they're the obvious choice in a good way because it makes sense for how your story should come together and pays off what you built up. And my God, I really wanted them to go back in time. And
So here's the thing. I also wanted them to do a time travel thing.
Yeah.
But my disappointment does not lie with like being wrong about that.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that it is just like, oh, we're going to subvert it. And I'm like, if you're subverting it for something that's a lateral move, or at the very least that you think is, that's like, obviously if it's better, it's better. But even something that's laterally equally good, then that's fine. This was not a lateral move.
Yeah.
This was a big fuck you to people's expectations and the audience. And it was more about subverting than it was about serving the story. And I still believe that.
yeah.
Even if they thought they were writing something good, it was not about actually, it was about surprising people.
Even though at the time I was enjoying pieces of it, and I don't like hate, I don't feel like any of the sci-fi or mythological elements that they added in the final season really added to the show overall. Like, yes, I understand it's more trite to just have them go back in time, and all the crazy time dilation stuff was like interesting-ish, but like, all that really gave us was hope growing up. And like, yes, Octavia was separated for a long time, but like, it really did not give us that much. And then like the disciples and all that stuff were interesting, but they also were just another flavor of what we've seen many times before on the show.
Yeah.
I don't feel like we would lose anything on a sci-fi or mythological level if we didn't have season 7.
Yeah.
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 I like some of the planets, I guess, but
it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Yeah. So the next one is recommend to a point. That's my personal favorite.
Yep.
I don't regret watching it, but season 7 destroyed my interest for the show to the point that months later, I still wouldn't enjoy a rewatch of the previous seasons. Oh, excuse me. This is from @Novion9 on Twitter. To someone who hasn't yet watched it, I'd recommend to stop watching at the end of season 5. It was a satisfying ending for me.
No Josephine.
I know.
But I understand that's the way to watch the show.
You just pretend. Yeah.
And you read some fanfic.
Yeah. Or you maybe have someone, again, I'm sure there's a Josephine being awesome compilation, and you can just watch her like taunting Clarke or Clarke, being Josephine or whatever, and you can just get like a weird like.
I wonder
if
I just took the footage from season 7, if I could re-edit it into a better story.
Oh my God!
I might give that a shot at some point.
You have so many projects.
Yeah.
That'll be like the 5-year anniversary of the 100 ending.
Yeah. The Daniel cut.
Ooh. All right. Miss Violet 666 says, only if maybe they stop at season 5, as that kind of had a proper ending. Definitely not the whole show. I for sure regret all those years I spent analyzing the show, thinking it will be worth it, that the show will make sense as a whole. It really didn't. So no, I won't recommend.
Fair.
Some people were saying to stop at like season 2 or 3. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. There's not enough, even if you think it goes down in quality, there's not enough of a ending to like keep me satisfied. Just stopping mid-show.
Especially like the way season 3 ends is not And, it's like the world's going to blow up. I can understand stopping at the end of season 4. I was never as big a fan as other people were about the end of season 4, but at least it does seem like a new beginning, time jump. Like, I can understand stopping there.
Yeah. At Lanave24 says, I regret watching the final season. Overall, I don't regret it because I hold fond memories over the experience of watching the show, i.e. watching with friends. But I 100% do not recommend it anymore to people looking for a new show, and have told the people I did recommend it to stop watching because it wasn't worth it. See, that's a bit more intense. I would just try to give people like a forewarning, but then from there, I wouldn't like repeatedly be like,
I'll say, if I knew someone was deeply invested in Bellamy and Clarke, I would probably tell them to stop watching.
Oh, that's fair. If that's what they were watching for, that's fair. Yeah. At Pretty Sure It's Gumbo says, I don't entirely regret it, if that makes sense. Like, there are things I will always be grateful to the show for, but I still feel like the last few seasons, especially the final season, fucked over the ones prior to it. I think the major thing is that it's no longer a show that I recommend to people and that I don't put amongst my top faves anymore, even if I do still list some aspects such as characters, relationships, and individual episodes/seasons as faves. Like, I would suggest Game of Thrones and Heroes before the 100. Whoa.
Heroes is a big jump for me, but
that's what I've heard. Those final seasons have plenty of their own issues. I also wonder if I would have a different opinion if I was a more casual viewer of the show.
I would still count it around among my favorite shows, I think. I think
I would say, The 100 used to be one of my favorite shows. It was disappointing by the end. So I'm kind of torn. Speaking of casual viewers, like my mom, God bless her. So she was watching The 100 before I was. And I always was like rolling my eyes at it. And then, but she was an occasional viewer. She was not like a week to week, I'm going to binge it on Netflix, whatever. This woman tries to watch the finale. Oh, God. She has no idea what's going on. She's like, wait, where's the guy? Where's the bell guy? She doesn't remember his name. Yeah, no, that did not work out for her. Me trying to explain, hey, this is why you should be mad at it. She was like, yeah, that sounds really messy. And I'm like, yes, it was. So there's a degree of casual. There's a not involved in fandom and a the scale hasn't seen the entire show in chronological order and is deeply involved in fandom. And I think maybe there's a sweet spot somewhere in the middle.
I wonder how you'd feel if you just binged the whole season 7 when it came out on Netflix and had no idea what you were doing. I mean, in some ways, I think I would have liked it better. But no matter what, when you hit that Bellamy episode, you're gonna be shot through the heart. I don't want to get too far into the fandom toxicity. Some people were celebrating that moment, but for me, it was like the death of the show. Yeah. So at Fabi Sky Belkul, even with its ups and downs, I enjoyed the first 6 seasons. What I regret is having watched season 7. It was a complete disaster that didn't respect the characters, the messages, and the philosophy that were in the story. Due to that season, I'm suspicious of other shows. I don't want to get involved in other fandoms. I don't want to have expectations of other shows to avoid disappointment. I think these kinds of experiences are fandom killers. What I regret is having loved this story more than the showrunner himself, who had the audacity to say that we didn't have to become so fond of the characters. Is this a direct quote? I don't know, but maybe they mean metaphorically by killing them off.
Maybe.
I don't know.
That season was a total lack of respect for the audience, the main characters, and actors. I started watching the show in 2019, and I can't imagine how disappointed and betrayed those who had been watching the show since 2014 must have felt. I can't wait to see how the careers of some of the cast members continue. I wouldn't dare to recommend the series to anyone.
So, yes, first of all, I agree. I want to see where everybody goes, although them being 100 persons is not enough to get me to watch Walker. I'm sorry, Lindsay. But at the same time, the thing that I thought was the most interesting about this particular one was the idea of it teaching you a lesson and it being a fandom killer. Yeah. And I gotta say, going back to that depressing thing of I get it. Like, how do you let yourself get invested in something that isn't a miniseries at this point? Or something that already finished that someone's told you ends well. Yeah. It's really difficult to, I'm a little worried that Ted Lasso is going to go down the drain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it has yet, but we're only on season 2, and I don't think it's as good as season 1. So, like, if it goes 5 seasons, how will I feel about Ted Lasso 5 seasons from now?
Right.
It's scary.
Yeah, you're putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I understand the idea of just, I only want to watch things that are done, that are in the hole. And even if it has some bad press, at least I know to expect it or something like that. You mitigate your expectations, but then you're not going to have that fandom experience. And that's not something everybody needs.
Or every show needs.
Right.
Yeah.
But it can be fun.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, you know, with us being podcasters and me listening to other podcasts for shows, like, I want to hear other people's opinions, even if I don't always agree with them.
Yeah.
And if the show is just like universally terrible by the end, then like that's not fun for anyone to discuss or harp on.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. From @Ivana2804, Ivana, who had been with us for many years. I wouldn't recommend it to people, but I don't regret watching it. It suffered the sad fate of a show that got to have the worst final season ever and was ruined by its showrunner, but I still enjoy the good parts and don't consider season 7 a part of the story, except for O on Skyring. The end of 713 made me just go, what the fuck was that? And the last 3 episodes made me LOL so hard. It was impossible for me to consider that the ending of the show. I also don't regret it because I've met so many wonderful people through the fandom and have had so many great conversations. There are also great fanfics, fan art, and fan videos, including some that provide better endings to the story. So some people might have beaten you to the re-edit.
Yeah, but they don't have the Dan cut.
Not that maybe.
So do you think this is worse than the Game of Thrones ending?
I was more invested in this than in Game of Thrones. So for me, that's a hard line to draw.
I think it's worse than Game of Thrones. And because people's issues with Game of Thrones, like, I get it, but like people have issues that I think they're being a little bit too intense about. Like, I 100% buy that Dany ended up where she ended up.
I think
I think they got there in the right way? No.
Yeah, it was an So I agree with you. There's like questionable things and execution issues, and yes, there are character issues.
I don't think they ruined the characters other than maybe Jaime. I feel like most of the other people are pretty okay.
They ruined oh my god, Peter Dinklage's character.
Did they?
Tyrion? Yeah, he was kind of an idiot by the end.
Yeah, but but I would never compare Tyrion's ending to Bellamy's ending. Like, you know, like,
right.
It's not on that same level.
No.
Yeah.
Tyrion is just like, again, maybe like the Echo or something like that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, like I feel like Dany, I don't dislike where she ended. I just think they skipped like a season. Her development just suddenly was somewhere different.
Yeah. But Dany is in a way the Bellamy, except she's also the Clarke in terms of being a maniac.
I don't know. Yeah.
I think that these are comparable, but to me, The 100 is more disappointing.
Yeah.
I think The 100 was trying to be more ambitious, and it was trying to, both shows, I think had showrunners that were trying to subvert expectations, and I think trying to subvert those expectations helped ruin the show. But the way in which, it was so much more personal in The 100, how it subverted and flipped off the audience.
I think the shows are actually very similar in that their biggest issue is not paying off things they built up.
Yeah.
You know, like, they spent so many seasons building up to the fight against the White Walkers, and then it was one episode that barely had consequence.
Yeah. And what happened with The 100? If everybody tried to become a White Walker, if not for joining a hive mind. God. From @LChetCool in our don't regret but can't rewatch section, we just have one tweet. I don't regret watching The 100, even though the last season was extremely disappointing. I think I would still recommend the show as a whole, but might add a caveat regarding season 7. My biggest issue with the show following the final season is rewatchability. I used to be able to rewatch seasons of this show on repeat non-stop. Now, when I go back to earlier seasons, I remember how it all ends and Bellamy's death in particular, and it sours the experience.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's why I feel like the idea of going back is just really difficult.
Yeah. All of their moments together, even working together.
Yeah.
Again, romance aside, disappointment and lack of romance aside, like, what?
I mean, maybe if we have enough time apart, like I'm thinking about the fact that like I can, like, before the ending happened, I was able to rewatch the Alexa and Clarke stuff, even knowing what happened with Alexa.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Like, if they just ruined Bellamy and didn't ruin Clarke, I might have been able to handle it. But the fact that they ruined both of them.
Yeah. I need enough distance for me to try to forget 6 and 7.
Yeah.
No, excuse me. To try to forget 7 so that when I only watch 1 through 5, I can like also kind of just forget that that planet exists.
1 through 5 and never mind.
Yeah, occasionally. A little treat at never mind.
Now we go to the optimists.
Right. The optimists on Twitter. You don't see many of those these days. From @BrianHasty. I still tell people to watch it. I give them the heads up that the final season is trash, but a few ships deliver, and the final season matters only for #Maxon, and my much-loved Raven finally accepting responsibility for her actions instead of blaming others. Clarke.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean, we got Murphy and Amori. I can't be that angry.
I mean, yeah.
They ended up being the best couple by far.
Oh, completely. Yeah. You know what? You have reminded me, and I did have this in my mind of like things I'm missing out on. I mean, they're cute in previous seasons.
Yeah.
And I mean, then you don't get the season 6 arc, or excuse me, that was the season 5 of them like breaking up and then getting back together. And then all the best Amori and Murphy stuff is later. But again, I can just watch that on YouTube of someone doing a supercut of them being like
awesome,
so cute.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. They're the best parts of 6 and 7.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. @Lexicum Tree Crew. Hey, she has a Twitter. Who would have thought? I don't regret watching. This show, with all of its flaws, is the only show that has rocked me to my emotional core, both in good and bad ways. It introduced me to characters that will forever live in my heart. I still recommend it to people as easily the greatest show I've ever watched, even knowing how it ends. I tell them, in my personal opinion, seasons 1 through 4 are the best, 5 was filler, 6 was really good, and 7 was a cluster, so watch what you will, but it's all worth your time.
Yeah.
I respect this, Lexa.
Yeah, I feel like that's basically how I feel.
That seems far more positive than how you speak.
Is it?
Kinda.
I said I didn't regret watching it, and I would recommend it as long as I gave a caveat.
Mm-hmm.
And I think someday I will rewatch. So I'm overall pretty positive.
Yeah, I guess you're the positive one in this relationship. That's not a surprise to me. Okay, our final tweet comes from @SkyXHeda. I definitely don't regret it. It may not have ended the way some people would have liked, but that doesn't take away from all the fun times I had watching it over the years. I definitely recommend it, and have many times. You know, maybe I should internalize this. I mean, I actually agree. I would rewatch it. I would technically still tell people, but it's just the sadness that I'll have.
I mean, it's kind of crazy that a year later, I do still feel too close to it. Like, it still does feel like a wound.
Even though we said at the beginning, it feels surprising that it's only been a year.
Yeah.
It's still not enough time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have some emails. Man, we haven't read emails in a while. So our first email is from Samantha. Was the 100 worth watching? I would say absolutely yes. Now, I understand that for some people, the final season or 2 was a huge disappointment and felt very deep feelings of betrayal and hurt due to how it all went down. But to me, it feels like the show How I Met Your Mother. When that finale happened, I felt like it ruined the entire show. For a few months after, whenever I tried to watch earlier episodes, they were all tainted by the horrible ending that undid years of character development. Sound familiar? But after more time had passed, I was able to move past it and still enjoy the first 8 seasons of the show. I even watched season 9 on occasion because the character of the mother was so well done. The 100 was a fantastic show. The world building and character development over the first 5 seasons was top-notch. In my opinion, any show that you enjoy is worth the watch, and after some time away, the frustration of the ending will fade. I've gone back to watch the first few seasons since the show ended, and it was still enjoyable and exciting. I would even say that I will rewatch seasons 6 through 7 because of the great characters introduced. Will I roll my eyes at the parts we all hate? You bet. But I'll focus on the good parts. I would totally recommend the show to other people with the caveat that many people say to stop with the season 5 finale. Yeah, I agree with you,
How
Samantha.
I Met Your Mother is a good example.
But here's the thing. I haven't rewatched it.
I haven't either. But I will say this. To me, How I Met Your Mother isn't exactly the 100 because comedy is different. Like, I can watch a random funny episode of How I Met Your Mother and just be like, this is funny. Like, maybe if I was actually, like, watching it all the way through, like, every episode sequentially, I'd have more of an issue with it. I think it's a lot harder to look at this show that is, like, its main two things are character and philosophy, and that's what they screw up in the end. So, like...
whereas How I Met Your Mother, the frame narrative is, it's a story of how I met your mother. So by the end, you're going to meet the mother. But a random episode in the middle doesn't really have that much of a tie to the end.
And it's also, How I Met Your Mother, it's like literally the last like 3 minutes that ruin the show as opposed to the whole last season.
Yeah. Although I don't think the last season was the best either.
I mean, I don't think the last like 3 seasons were the best, but...
But that's the thing. Speaking for myself, I don't see myself watching How I Met Your Mother from beginning to end because I don't want to go on that journey and feel disappointed again. But I could see myself doing it with 100. I could.
Interesting.
Maybe. At the very least 1 through 5, but not for a long time.
Yeah.
You can rewatch without me if you're ready before
How
I
I Met
am.
Your Mother or the 100?
The 100.
Anyway.
I give you permission. All right. From Casey. I'm a big fan of both this podcast and your Ranking Rick Riordan one.
Thank you.
And was so excited at the thought of a kind of reflective look at the 100 now that at least some of the initial wound has healed. For a while, I had a hard time even thinking about the 100. I was a total open wound and it hurt too much to think about how you-know-who, Jason, had completely disregarded years of character development and storytelling groundwork for really nothing other than audience contempt and an alleged dispute. Eventually, I did need my fix of this universe, though, which I accomplished through re-listening to this podcast a couple times. Aw, highly recommend all of the great, none of the pain, and you guys. I did eventually succumb, but it took a good while. So, as someone who is currently in the midst of a rewatch, despite how much pain the show has caused me, I have to say I think it's still worth it. The highs are simply too high. I've even convinced my mom and younger sister to join me. And while they are entirely unaware of the emotional and mental anguish headed their way, I feel no qualms about it because it just has so many great moments even sprinkled into the overall not so great seasons. I will simply never find it within myself to feel any kind of regret for watching the show that gave me Clarke Griffin, the Blakes, Raven Reyes, and Nathan Miller, a true gem. And are you kidding me with some of the parallels of the early seasons? I die every time I hear, you need forgiveness. I'll give that to you. You're forgiven. Now, do I regret putting any faith in the morality of Jason Rothenberg? Of course. That man is like responsible for half of my trust issues at this point. They were not platonic. Yeah.
I want an update because you said this a while ago.
Oh, right.
How did your family feel about you not warning them?
that threw me being like, they have no idea. I'm like, you didn't warn them?
That's crazy. Crazy.
I wouldn't talk to someone if they didn't warn me about something of this scale. I'd be like,
That's
we're on, shaky ground in our relationship.
They mentioned listening to the podcasts, and I actually feel like I would be more interested in listening to our podcasts again than watching the show.
I might,
but I don't know if I can do it. I'm sure.
Listen to us?
I'm sure there would be so many cringy things that we said that make me uncomfortable and embarrassed that I said them.
What do you mean?
I don't know. We started this like 5 years ago. I was stupid.
I mean, yeah, me too. Little did I know that I was objectifying one of the worst humans to have ever lived.
Yes. I don't know. We talked about some very serious issues, and I hope that I would still agree with the things that I said, but I probably don't agree with everything I said.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that's troublesome with it. And even though in theory, I actually thought about re-listening to us and just hearing our thoughts of all of it. And even us having to, because I knew we were going to be recording this, of like hearing us talk about season 7 as it happened and seeing if I still agreed with myself in retrospect. I never got around to that. But yeah, that's the thing of we grew and our relationship grew and the things we were experiencing in our lives that gave context to the show or that we connected with to the show. Like, I don't necessarily want to remember all of those things. So it's just the nostalgia of like, we did it that I'm going to carry for a while.
Yeah. All right, so I think that's it as far as our feedback, but we do have the polls you wanted to talk about.
Yes. Okay, so we created a poll. It got 286 votes. The questions were, was the 100 worth watching? And the answers were, no, well, maybe, I don't know. That got 12% of the vote. No, just no. That got 26% of the vote. Yes, but I can't rewatch it. That got 27% of the vote. And the biggest majority, yes, and I do it again, 35% of the vote.
Wow. I forgot that was how that poll ended.
Yes, I am shocked that, again, it's overall positive.
Yeah.
So, additionally, someone linked our thread of was the 100 worth watching to someone else's poll that I found. And this person, at Only Burson, he got 462 votes. And the question was, should I start watching the 100? And this was, after the finale over the summer.
Yes, no, binary.
Yes. Yes has 48.3% and no 51.7%.
Fascinating.
So in that regard, it is very evenly split. And it had more votes than our poll did. Yeah. So even looking at the cut and dry, I think in a way it might depend on the day. It might depend on the moment. Like, are the people retweeting it very invested in certain ships or not,
Well, it also depends on the person again. Like if I know the person would be very angry at the end, then I probably would say no. If I knew they were like, I just want to watch a fun show, dumb show, whatever, like it kind of depends that way.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. This video that we made, even though the question was it worth watching? Someone who hasn't seen it probably won't listen to this podcast or watch the YouTube video. Yeah. Like, this is a question for the fandom. No one is going to use this as a guidepost of whether or not they should
Maybe someone, well, who's to say?
All right. Well, then they're going to be, I think, stuck with a 50-50 split.
Look for a hive mind. And that wraps it up. I think we've said all there is to say about the 100 ever. But if you have other ideas of things you want us to talk about or whatever, other podcasts, just let us know. You can email us at the100pod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at the100podcast. You can leave comments down below the YouTube video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun hearing your various thoughts. May we meet again.
May we meet again.